Howdy y'all, I am IceGold, and today I wanted to talk about something that has to do with gear and how, I guess, people farm for gear at max level. Because, as we know, the Selenopolis update came out back in November, and with it we were expecting some new gear. We were expecting maybe some new stats here and there, maybe, you know, they shake up stats, maybe introduce a new template like they have in the past during their off-year updates. But I guess to a lot of our disappointment, I don't know if disappointment would be the right word, considering, you know, it's not something we have to farm for, something new that we have to farm for if we already got Wallaru gear, but we found out that the Avatar set that drops, the Tier 1 set from Selenopolis, is the exact same as the Dream Reaver gear. And I mean, it's a little interesting how that's a thing that happened, but you know, it's sort of just whatever. But let me get on my main set. So, like I said, the brand new Selenopolis Tier 1 gear has the exact same stats as Dream Reaver, and you know that includes the hat, the boots, the wand as well. I know I have the Dream Reaver boomerang around here somewhere, but maybe it's just gone. But ultimately, what matters is that all of them are the same. So now it's sort of become a question for people who max their characters after Selenopolis came out. It's sort of, where do you want to go to actually farm the gear? And with Selenopolis being rather short, it's become kind of a hotspot as of late. I have seen people farming Kansu for certain items and all that, but with Reaver gear being the same, it sort of begs the question, what would be easier to farm necessarily? And there are pity systems for both worlds that honestly aren't that bad. You do have to grind a little bit in order to unlock them, like you gotta get badges and all that, but otherwise it's not too bad. But I will say that the Selenopolis gear, I guess, acquisition is easier in some aspects, and the Wallaru gear acquisition is also easier in its own ways in specific, or I guess in certain spots for certain pieces. So, in this video, I'm going to go over where you should farm for the best max level gear at this point. It's like we already know what the best max level gear is. It's either Reaver or Avatar gear. So, this is just going to be about where you go to actually acquire that. So to start off with the elephant in the room, the clothes and wands from Wallaru drop from the Nightmare Dungeon, which is located out in the Dreaming, and is widely regarded as one of the biggest wastes of time any wizard could ever undertake. However, it was necessary if you wanted the best gear before the Selenopolis update dropped. So if you wanted the, you know, Fervid Dream Reaver hood, for example, for your fire wizard, you would have to go farm the Nightmare. And after you beat the whole dungeon 15 times and, you know, did all of the annoying running around that maze, dodging the broken dreams, and selling your soul, then you would be able to get the gear. And you'd be able to craft it for every character across your account, which I thought was cool. But needless to say, it is a very good idea to avoid this hassle entirely and just go to Selenopolis to farm for your hats, your robes, although don't actually get the robes from Selenopolis. You want the Nullity robes, or the, I guess, demonic robes from the Polaris raid for the best. But, you know, if you do want the I guess, end of world robes, you can go to either Selenopolis or Wallaru. But yeah, Selenopolis is what you want to do if you do want that robe. And then obviously the boots and the wands are all going to be much better off farmed in Selenopolis. Now, Kansu himself will drop the hats and robes, as well as tier jewels, triangle jewels, and power pins. So good idea to go there. And the Loon Knight at the end of the, I guess, Pyramid Dungeon? I can't remember what exactly it was called. Keeping it a bug with y'all, I wasn't really paying attention when I quested through Selenopolis, but Loon Knight, at the end of that dungeon, I think it's 2 fights before him, and then you can get it. So with a coordinated team, it will be very easy to get that for the boots. And then the Loon Knight also drops the dex, but yeah, we'll get to the dex in a little bit. For the wands, though, you fight the Taking Tree in the Vivarium. So let me head on over there. And the Taking Tree is, well, let's just say he'll want a group to farm with, just to say the absolute least about that. But ultimately, though, it's either you farm the Taking Tree, which is annoying, or you farm the Nightmare, which is soul draining. And I think I would take annoying over soul draining. So the Taking Tree is exactly where I would go to farm for the wands. Although, I mean, personally, I just rock the raid wands just because they're the exact same, except they give sheds. But you get the idea. If you don't want to do raids, then like Selenopolis is where you're going to want to farm for this, this, and this. So there you have it. Just far hall, put me near the Taking Tree. Okay, so yeah, this is going to be the Taking Tree over here where Rosalind and Tabitha are at. So behind this door, this is the Taking Tree. So you can farm your wands from there. So now let's discuss Athames. And the Athame that I've got is the Fervid Dream Reaver knife that drops from the Invader fleets, which you can farm through the Doom Moon in Novus after you finish the Wallaru storyline. So, that fight is annoying, and even with a full dedicated team, it can still take moons. So, my recommendation is going to be to farm Mother Sun, which is the final, I guess, boss of a side quest line here in Selenopolis. And she is not very hard at all. With a dedicated team, you could probably 1 to 2 round her. So, Mother Sun is going to be the wave for Athames. Like I said, you know, she's not hard. It's also not 4 bosses that have 2 phases to them. So, yeah, Mother Sun, kind of an easy choice there. Let's talk about amulets next. And amulets, yeah, so this is actually going to be the first entry where I would say farm in Wallaru, because the boss that drops these is going to be Crash the Bandit Coot, which is a side quest boss that I'm sure many of you know about by now, out in the Wabagong territory. Lady Cortexia in the Billabong Resort will give you the side quest to go beat him. And he is a very popular farming location because he drops Dreamwater consistently, and he also drops these Dream Reaver amulets consistently as well. And on top of that, he will drop legendary socket wrenches. Not exactly like flies necessarily, but if you do them enough, I've seen people that have beaten him like 3,500 times, and yeah, it's aggressive, but still, if you're just after the amulet, you won't need to do them nearly that many times. In fact, there's a very good chance that you will get the amulet before you reach the 20 defeats that you need to unlock crafting at Bingo and Hope Springs. So this is probably the most common drop the Reaver amulets are out of everything, out of all the Reaver pieces. So with that in mind, I would say Crash the Bandit Coot is going to be the place that you want to farm for your max level amulets. So definitely do that. And I do like these more than the raid amulets. Even though I have raided a lot, I personally do like the Reaver amulets more, just because they give a Fireblade. So keep that in mind as well. Next on the list is going to be rings. Now, these also drop from Mother Sun, but this one is kind of up to y'all, in my opinion, because with the Reaver ring, you will have to farm Freddy Croker in the Dreaming. That fight is not exactly a cakewalk and can get a little annoying, whereas Mother Sun will drop the rings from here in Selenopolis, but Mother Sun, with her, it'll be easier to get the ring, I guess, but you probably won't get as much of the world reagent as you would from Freddy Croker. Freddy Croker is still where most people, like if you're farming Dreamwater exclusively, most people are going to go to Freddy Croker with a dedicated team. So he drops these rings, and he is my recommended choice for where to get your end of world or end of story rings. So That's what I would recommend for the rings, although if you don't really care too much about, getting Dream Water, I would say Mother Sun is the easier fight, but of course that is still a whole side quest that you gotta do, so just keep that in mind as well. So next on the list is, and finally on the list, is going to be the decks, and who drops these again? Is it Loon Knight? It is Loon Knight, so Loon Knight will drop the decks, and the Selenopolis decks, at least, like the Manifest and Avatar decks, will drop from him. But in my honest opinion, I would recommend farming Mr. Montgomery out in the Doom Moon, just because, I mean, it's too much easier, mob fights before you get to Mr. Montgomery, and his cheat cycle is a little odd, but as long as you can just survive to round 5, it's totally fine. And ultimately, I think you're going to spend less time in that dungeon compared to fighting, all the ducks and whatnot before you get to Loon Knight. So that's how I see things. With a dedicated team doing things like Scald and Incendiate, probably takes the same amount of time if we're being real. But with a team that you'll probably find just on Team Up, that type of deal, I would recommend Mr. Montgomery. Both bosses will drop the square jewels that you see here, the max health jewels that are very, very useful. So, there's no real preference in terms of that. But yeah, although I guess if you are farming for the boots, this is important. If you're farming for the boots first with Loon Knight, then you'll automatically unlock the decks as you go along. So if it's if we're in a vacuum and all you want is the deck, I would recommend Mr. Montgomery. But if you've already farmed for the boots, then I would recommend Loon Knight. Yeah, that's his name. So yeah, I hope I'm not giving too much conflicting info. Basically, if you are farming for both the boots and the deck, go for Loon Knight. If you're just farming for the deck, go for Mr. Montgomery. There we go. I know how to speak English. So that is going to wrap this up. So this is where you go to farm all of them for the hats, robes, boots, and wands. Hats and robes drop from Khonsu at the very end of the Selenopolis questline. Boots will drop from the Loon Knight right before Khonsu, I think, in the storyline. And then the wands will drop from the Taking Tree, which is just right over here that I've passed by a bunch of times. And then Fames will drop from Mother Sun at the end of a questline. So it's Selenopolis, 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 Selenopolis. And then for the remaining 3 pieces, we go Wallaru with Crash the Bandicoot and Wabagon Territory, Freddy Croaker for the Dream Reaver rings in the Dreaming, and Mr. Montgomery for the Dream Reaver decks in the Doom Moon. Although, of course, like I said, if you're going for the boots and the deck, if you're trying to just kit out a brand new Max Wizard, then I would recommend the Loon Knight for both. So, that will wrap up. Thank y'all for watching. I have been Ice Gold. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave 50 comments for the algorithm. My Discord is down in the description if you want to chat with me some more, and I will see y'all later.